Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Lambert, and I'm joined today by Michelle Harbarcuk, our EVP of Service Delivery here at Terra Staffing Group. Hello, Michelle.
Hi.
Hi, we're here to talk about talent market. This is the question that we get more than anything from our clients and our colleagues. What is happening in the job market? And particularly right now, we're hearing more questions in terms of what's happening given some changes and shifts that we're seeing in the economy. So I guess, spoiler alert, we'll tell you where we're going with this update. We want to talk about the economy, a little bit about what we're seeing in the economy. The competition for talent has remained strong. We predict that it will remain strong through the end of the year. And we'll talk more about that. And then also we'll leave you with some smart moves or some winning moves that we think that any employer could take to really improve their odds of winning in the talent game. So let's start with the economy. Michelle, what's your take on the economy? I know we watch this very closely.
I wish I had a crystal ball. I think it is right now just that buzz of uncertainty. And so I'm listening to the buzz, right? I want to make sure that I'm keeping my ears open. But for me, there's also the point of factual data.
That's right. And you see here, Wall Street investors are worried, and you see lots of headlines. Just this morning, I saw, a headline about a startup company in Seattle cutting 6% of its workforce. When you dig deeper into the article, it's like 4 people, right? So, but it feels like the media is very in tune to anything that has to do with layoffs, because we haven't heard that word for a while. And so it's starting to really, raise the antenna. But then you look at what's happening in real life, in real time, and you see that, companies can't keep up. How many people have we talked to recently who've had a flight rescheduled because there's just not enough capacity or staff? American Airlines headline wanting to hire a record number of new pilots. Fidelity hiring spree, and you see signs everywhere now, hiring signs, including, this is a picture I added in from real life that I saw recently, now hiring people that actually show up. A lot of frustration from employers when it comes to hiring. So what do we make of all of this? Well, let's get into, to Michelle's point, let's get into some actual factual data. So the unemployment rate remains low. This is the most recent data that came out in the July jobs report. Still low. Will it stay low? Well, federal policymakers are projecting higher unemployment, but look at these numbers. I don't know that I would call this higher. What do you see here, Michelle?
Yeah, an increase is one thing, but it is not much of an increase, and it doesn't really impact the behavior of the job seeker, or it doesn't really impact the ability to get more talent in the door. An increase like that is not going to change the quantity or the quality of talent.
Yeah. 100%. So, I don't know that anybody's hoping for a recession. Absolutely not. But I do hear some employers who are like, a little one, if we could just dial it a little bit so that we could, have a little more, talent supply, maybe. I don't know that that's going to happen. And, the competition is remaining very strong for talent. This is a metric that we follow very closely, and we've included it in most of our talent updates. I think it's very relevant. Currently, still, less than one unemployed person per every job opening. So, our joke is, do you want the top half of this person or the bottom half? Because there's not even a full person available for all.
There's not even a full person for your job.
No. And so what do we do with that? You said this is something else that we track very closely. It's just volume of job postings. It tells us what's happening. Clearly, that's of interest to us being in the employment marketplace. This is data from our friends over at ZipRecruiter. Their job postings are up almost 85% since before the pandemic. Over at Snag a Job, this is their data. They're showing that there has been a slight dip. Dip is probably too strong of a word, right? They say down 6% month over month, but still up 25% year over year, and up almost 160% pre-pandemic. So yes, are we seeing a slight adjustment there? Nothing dramatic. And then this is an interesting subset. A lot of our clients hire in this warehouse and logistics space. There's been no downturn here. Tell me what you're seeing in the marketplace there, Michelle.
Yeah, absolutely. The need for talent is still strong. I think that we've talked about supply chain challenges in the past, and people are now starting to get some of those supplies in. So the chain has opened up a bit. But we are seeing the need for skilled employees in the logistics space. We are seeing the need for inexperienced employees, right? Whatever it might be. This has continued to be a huge demand, and I don't see it stopping either. We haven't even hit for us what we consider peak season. in this industry.
Yeah, third and fourth quarter being, for many of our clients in that space, being their absolute peak. And yeah, you see the data here up to 1,200, almost 1,300% pre-pandemic. It's not shocking, right? We're all receiving goods and products delivered straight to our doorstep. Huge demand for warehouse logistics talent. Where workforce participation is still showing some modest signs of recovery, but far off from where we were pre-pandemic. So we're inching, maybe inching is again too strong a word, slightly creeping upward, but still that's not giving us a lot of relief. And wages are continuing to climb. I know nobody listening to this is surprised to hear this data. Just about every company that we talk to is paying more today than they were a year ago, pretty significantly in some cases. Yep. And yet spending power isn't rising. I found this data very interesting. This comes from the Department of Labor, actual employer wages and salary cost per employee hour worked when you look at it on a constant dollar basis. So I know the real dollars are higher, but in terms of the constant dollar, it's actually not. This is broken out into 10th, 50th, and 90th percentile. You see in the 90th percentile, actually in terms of constant dollar, it's actually gone down a little bit. So there's a disconnect there. And at the same time, we're seeing real average hourly earnings decreasing. And the culprit here is the rising cost of living. This is, again, not a mystery to anybody listening to this. We know we've all been to the gas station recently, unless you're a person who drives an electric car and feeling real smart right now. The cost of living has gone up. And so employees are not feeling those wage increases in quite the way they would like to. Something else I think we need to talk about here, Michelle, is that in terms of not just the wage growth, but the very real fact that there is data that shows that people who are changing jobs are increasing their income significantly faster than people who are staying employed. Do you want to say more about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have heard from people in my personal circle, along with people that we have recruited or placed, that they got a raise when they get a new job.
Yeah.
And so
it's always been that way, right? We know that most of the time people don't change jobs and go backwards financially, but we're seeing increases. Once upon a time, we would tell individuals looking to make a job change that they should expect maybe a 5% increase if they were staying in the same job category. But the salary increases are much higher.
Increases. Yeah. And I think with that, not only just you get a new job, you get a raise, but we are seeing people continue to change jobs more frequently. So I think if you're still of the mindset of looking at somebody who has this long-term work history that stayed somewhere forever, you've got to open up your mindset there and say, nope, they've made some strategic jumps that have helped them in their life. At the same time, looking at and looking at your most valued employees and saying, am I competitive? I recently worked with somebody who was leaving their employer of 29 years because everybody around her left and got a raise. And she finally said, it's time.
Wow. Ouch. And seems preventable potentially, right? And one of the things we're advising, and we have a good friend in the compensation consulting space who's been a speaker on our HR Hotspot program, who was telling us recently that her recommendation to all of her clients is you've got to look and think broader than your typical 3% raise pool when it comes time to salary adjustments, your annual salary adjustments, because you see this data, the data here this is again from our friends over at ZipRecruiter, almost half of the people they surveyed said they got a raise of 11% or more, and another 31% got a raise of 6 to 10%. And so you don't want there to be some perverse incentive to change jobs. There may be other reasons people change jobs too, but we certainly, if there is a way to not make this the only reason somebody changes jobs, then that would be a smart move.
One other thing I'm seeing there too, Jen, is just some of the clients that I work with are worried about increasing wage because of the uncertainty in the economy. And we have told them we've never seen wages go backwards. So they don't have to necessarily worry that if they raise it now, they're not going to need it later. It's still going to be needed. That raising cost of living is still there. So it's going to allow them to retain and attract talent.
Yeah. And you can create your own recession by being understaffed, right? Capacity matters. Job seekers still show a strong preference for flexible work arrangements. And I know that not every employer can offer this. Again, a lot of work we do is in that category that you would call the essential workplace, where people need to show up to do the work. I think the big takeaway here is that flexibility, and if there is any way to offer flexibility, people are wanting it. LinkedIn says that less than 10% of the jobs that are posted on LinkedIn are remote opportunities, and yet those jobs receive more than 50% of all job applications. And we're definitely seeing that again for those essential jobs. Anytime we offer flexible shifts as a consideration, the ability for somebody to pick their own shift, have any sort of a flexible work arrangement, we definitely see the traffic go up to those job postings. At the same time, relying on active job seekers won't get all your jobs filled. You saw the previous slide about less than one person unemployed for every open job. And that means you're going to need to make your job attractive to people who are working somewhere else. You're going to need to incentivize or inspire someone to leave a job they're in currently to come take your job. This is probably one of the best illustrations I've seen of this gap between the number of job openings and that unemployment level. And again, this is data shared by our friends over at ZipRecruiter about proactive recruitment. 36.7% of people in this survey said that they were recruited into their current job. And this is not just their takeaway from this data was this isn't just executive level roles. This is not just technical roles. This is people working in forklift operator jobs, people in customer service roles. Proactive recruitment is key. If you're waiting for an unemployed applicant to apply to your job, it's going to be open for a while. And that's going to hurt you because speed of hire matters more than ever. This data shows that more than 50% of people who changed jobs in the last 6 months said that they made that job change in less than a month. And so again, looking at your hiring process, anything you can do to remove extra steps, unnecessary steps, consolidate and condense that hiring experience and make a decision quickly. So what are some winning moves? Michelle, what do we do?
So I think number one, right, we talked about this already, but what differentiates you from your competition in attracting talent? So whether it is wage, whether it is benefits or flexibility, you really need to look at who is that talent pool you're after and you need, and make sure they want to choose you. And I think also the bright spots. So looking at the people who you have there who are performing, who you want to retain. Why are they staying? Why are they succeeding? Who else can you target and have them succeed and retain them?
Absolutely. And then communicating. I mean, the communicating over and over and over for those employees about why they're better off working for you than somewhere else, what their career path opportunity is, when is that next raise scheduled, why are they being paid what they're being paid, how does that compare to the market, and not leaving anything to doubt or to question, because when employees start to have questions about their circumstances around employment, a job board is just a quick keystroke away for them to go compare. So making sure that you're speaking into that experience, that your voice as an employer is being heard as they're weighing and wrestling. And we're saying here, retention is the new recruitment. Anything that you can do to increase retention is absolutely a winning move. Talk about money. Money still matters. It always has. It always will when it comes to employment. It's not the only consideration, so you don't want to let it become the only consideration. But the more that, again, you can benchmark compensation against the market and communicate that, communicate to your employees how pay is being established and what your pay policies are and practices are to remove some of that mystery. That's going to be in your favor. Michelle, what about non-wage incentives or bonuses? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's really attractive in a job posting and it might get more eyes on your position. It may get people in the door at first, but in order to retain them and really in order to get people to start the job and apply, you need to have a wage that's competitive. So a bonus is the icing on top of the cake, but definitely bonus incentives do not make up for a lower wage, for a wage that isn't competitive in the space or the market.
Yeah, I know we're seeing employers who've been disenchanted with that. They put some money into bonuses and they get people in the door, but then they don't stay beyond that bonus requirement period, because if the pay is not competitive, they forget about that bonus pretty quickly. So let's talk about also rethinking recruiting. So, we just made this point in a previous slide that proactive recruitment is not just for senior roles. It's not just for technical roles. What can you do to be proactive about reaching out and and engaging candidates that may or may not be actively looking, or may be looking, but they're not looking at your opportunities unless you engage them. And just, this is not meant to be a sales video, but I just wanted to mention that we are working with a lot more companies, helping them do direct hire placement into positions that traditionally they haven't done that with. Again, forklift operator roles, warehouse roles, customer service roles. But we've created a different hiring model for that is not your typical fee for hire arrangement. So if you have any interest in hearing more about that, we'd love to share with you how that's working for other employers. Also, internal mobility. Thinking about internal mobility is a fancy way of saying look inward, look at your own employees, and how can you create career paths for them before you go look for the shiny new applicant. Is there somebody or some individuals that you could be looking at internally who, with a little bit of training, upskilling, reskilling, some intentional career pathing, could be right for other opportunities or roles in your organization? It creates retention, it creates loyalty. And oftentimes your best next hire is already working for you. Sure. And then anything you can do to shorten that time to hire. You still want to make a good hiring decision, but rethinking and retooling that hiring process so that you can move quickly. When an interview process stalls out, candidates lose interest real fast. We're seeing that.
And I think for some, that's a mindset shift. It's saying, oh, somebody didn't follow up, or they didn't follow the steps I wanted them to. Well, that one person has multiple options and opportunities, and they're probably going to take the job that's easiest for them to get into and get that paycheck going. So think about, how do you make it easy? How do you remove friction? How do you make it attractive to the talent?
Absolutely. And as always, we're here to help. This is our world. This is what we deal with day in and day out. And we have a backstage pass, front row seat, however you'd like to say it, to hundreds, thousands of companies across many different industries. And we know what's working and we know what's hurting employers right now. And so if there's anything we can do to help in any way, please do feel free to reach out. It continues to be an interesting, challenging market, but it's still one filled with opportunity, and employers are finding ways to win in the middle of all this. And we'd love to help you if we can in any way. Thanks for joining me today, Michelle.
Thank you. Thanks, Jen.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.